After 5 years of marriage to Clyde, I'm still the laughingstock of their circle. There was only one wedding, and the groom disappeared. When I was on the brink of death during childbirth, the father of my child was nowhere to be found. And all of this was because of a girl who loved to cry. Ada. She was the orphan Clyde adopted, and they referred to each other as uncle and niece. But the way he doted on her, and the way she clung to him, always made people feel there was more to their relationship than just family ties. On the day Clyde and I got married, Ada thoughtfully disappeared, leaving only a note behind. Uncle, I've thought about it over and over, and I don't know how to face you after your marriage. So, I've decided to leave. Please don't come looking for me. How could Clyde not go after her? Even when she was at school, he needed to know her every move at all times. And now that she was missing, he couldn't trust anyone else to handle it. He had to go find her himself. The grand wedding that the media had been hyping up was left with just me. But I couldn't leave. Back then, my family's company had hit a rough patch, and Clyde's family had stepped in to help. This marriage of convenience was a mix of genuine feelings and business interests. At the wedding venue, I had no choice but to tough it out until the end, reluctantly seeing off our friends and relatives. I politely and tactfully explained to them that Clyde was just worried about his younger family member. But everyone knew, what kind of younger family member was Ada? She was just a girl Clyde had adopted from an orphanage when he was 20. They weren't related by blood. Now, at 18, she had a mind of her own and had already ruined several of Clyde's relationships. Time and time again, she proved that she was more important than any of Clyde's girlfriends. Everyone knew it, but no one dared to say it out loud, afraid of offending Clyde. But as Clyde's neglected wife, I became the subject of their gossip and ridicule. Leslie can't even compete with that little girl, and she dares to call herself the most beautiful woman in City A. Once that girl grows up a bit more, Leslie will have to step aside. I endured these rumors for 5 years. Our daughter is now 5 years old, and Clyde has never mentioned divorce. But one thing remains unchanged: Ada will always be his top priority. I'll never forget the day I gave birth to our daughter. I was in so much pain, screaming and calling out his name. But he never showed up. He didn't see me at my most vulnerable, nor did he witness the first moments of our daughter's life. That day, he was at Ada's graduation ceremony. He presented her with flowers in front of everyone and was even invited to give a speech. Everyone envied Ada, saying she was the apple of Clyde's eye. I've forgiven Clyde many times. But the one thing I can't forgive is how he neglects our daughter because of Ada. Our daughter, Nina, is now 5 and in kindergarten. But her father has never once picked her up or dropped her off. I brought it up with Clyde, but he thinks it's unnecessary. The whole world knows he's busy, running a massive business empire, with no time to spare. Besides, we have drivers and nannies. Why should he waste his time on something like that? Yes, spending time with his daughter and building a relationship with her is a waste of time for Clyde. But I know that when Ada was in school, Clyde made time to pick her up and drop her off every day. How did he have so much time to waste back then? That night, I confronted him for the first time. Clyde, if you love that girl so much, why don't you divorce me and marry her? What kind of relationship do you two even have? He was furious and slapped me across the face. What nonsense are you spouting? It was the first time he had ever laid a hand on me. 5 years ago, when he showed up late after I gave birth to our daughter, I hurled the worst insults at him, but he just held my hand and apologized. But when it came to Ada, What? Does it make you sick too? I threw another insult at him, matching his slap with one of my own. In the end, he clutched his face, stormed out, and didn't come back all night. The news of Clyde hitting me reached my parents, who were retired abroad. Over the years, our family's business had gradually shifted overseas. Our marriage to Clyde had been a business arrangement. But now, there was no need for it anymore. How much longer are you going to drag this out? With the child still young, it's better to divorce now. I looked at the red mark on my face in the mirror and finally felt defeated. Don't worry, I've already contacted a lawyer. These 5 years might as well have been wasted on a dog. Just as I was discussing the draft of the divorce agreement with my lawyer, Clyde called. What time does Nina finish school? I'll pick her up. I laughed. Nina finished school an hour ago. She's already had dinner. Hearing this, Clyde fell silent. After a long pause, just as I was losing patience, he finally said, "I'm sorry about yesterday. I felt nothing." Noted. The damage was already done. What good is an apology now? Clyde didn't give up. The next day, he picked up Nina on time. Father and daughter came home laughing and chatting. Nina excitedly told me, "Daddy said we're going on a family trip during the holiday. Mom, I want to see the desert. I want Daddy to carry me while we ride camels. Please, can we?" The holiday was just 2 days away, and a trip wouldn't interfere with the divorce. I didn't want to disappoint Nina. I said, "Okay." Nina was thrilled. Clyde also seemed relieved. He probably didn't want to feel guilty. But unfortunately, our family trip never happened. Clyde cancelled at the last minute. Apparently, Ada had left without a word and gone abroad. He had no choice but to chase after his little girl. That morning, Nina sat on the front steps with her little suitcase, crying uncontrollably, refusing to listen to anyone. At the same time, my mom's chronic illness flared up. Worried about her, I booked tickets and decided to take Nina with me to visit my mom. Before leaving, I left the divorce papers for Clyde. But at the airport, we ran into each other. I walked up to Clyde and told him, "Nina and I are going to visit my mom. We might not be back for a year or two. Don't joke around." Clyde glanced at me dismissively, his tone impatient. The airport announcement echoed, signaling that both our flights were about to depart. Just then, Clyde's assistant rushed over and told him, "Miss Ada is on that flight. You can still catch her if you hurry." Hearing this, his expression softened. He turned back to me and said, "Take care of Nina. Come back soon." With that, Clyde turned and left. He was so sure I wouldn't leave him. But Clyde, I'm really not coming back. As the plane was about to land, the sunrise was breaking through the clouds. The past was behind us. Everything was about to start anew. It felt like a good omen. After landing, my brother Devin picked us up. Over the years, he had been taking care of our parents and managing the business here. I had asked my parents to keep it from him, so he didn't know about Clyde slapping me. If he had known, he probably would have killed Clyde. But even so, when he found out I was getting a divorce, my brother was thrilled. "You should have divorced him a long time ago. That guy was never the right match for you. We never should have agreed to that business marriage." He had a point, but a multi-billion-dollar deal wasn't something to take lightly. Besides, I had loved Clyde. He was willing to marry me, and I was willing to marry him. But now, I regretted it. "Do me a favor." "What?" "Find me a few men. Strong ones." Devin was visibly startled. "Is Nina asleep?" "Obviously. If she weren't, I wouldn't be saying something like this. Clyde may deserve to die, but he's still Nina's father. Beating him up isn't something Nina should know about, and you're not allowed to mention it." "Devin, sorry, I think I misunderstood." "Me." Once we got home, I finally relaxed. My mom was in good health. She had only faked her illness to get me to come see her sooner. My parents were heartbroken about my failed marriage and spent a long time comforting me while cursing Clyde. The scolding only stopped when Nina woke up. They doted on their precious granddaughter before finally getting to the main topic. "You're not going back, right? Take some time off and help Devin at the company?" "Right, there are plenty of talented young men there too." They spoke with enthusiasm. I didn't argue. I knew they just wanted me to experience some sweetness after all the bitterness I'd endured. At that moment, Nina looked up at them with her big eyes and asked innocently, "Are you finding me a new daddy?" "No, Nina." I thought Nina might be upset and quickly tried to explain. But to my surprise, the little girl suddenly clapped her hands. "Yay! Nina wants a new daddy." I was both amused and exasperated. Did she even understand what a new daddy meant? A new daddy is mommy's new husband. My classmate has a new daddy, and she says he's really nice. I asked her why her new daddy is so nice, and she said he's richer than her old daddy and buys her lots of toys. Mommy, is being rich really that good? It was the first time Nina had asked me such a profound question. Before I could think of how to answer, she pouted and answered herself. I don't think being rich is that great, because my daddy is really rich. My heart ached. Kids really do understand more than we think. Suddenly, Nina had an idea and tugged at my arm. Mommy, can you find me a new daddy too? Find one who smiles at you, celebrates your birthday, and helps me prepare surprises for you. Just someone different from Daddy. She pouted as she spoke. Daddy doesn't do anything. He makes you unhappy. Her little mind was entirely focused on me. In that moment, I couldn't hold back my tears. My precious girl. Having you is enough for me. After a few days of rest, I started job hunting. I didn't choose to work at our family company. After all, it wasn't my field of expertise. I studied broadcasting, and my dream was to work at a TV station. Fortunately, it's never too late to chase your dreams. And Nina had said she wanted to see me on TV because it looked cool, followed by, that way, more amazing men can see Mommy. Thanks to her little mouth, I ran into two men shortly after joining the TV station. One was a colleague, a local rich kid. He said he fell for me at first sight. The other was an old classmate from college. When he heard I was divorced, he invited me to dinner to confess his long-standing crush on me. I was confused, but my brother said, "Look in the mirror. Men love women like you." He had changed. He used to call me ugly. By the way, does Clyde know about this? After how he treated you, you might as well betray him. I had no response. Later, Clyde did find out. I've been here for 2 months now. Nina's holiday is over. I've hired a tutor for her, aligned her with the local curriculum, and prepared to enroll her in school. Before that, I planned to inform Clyde out of courtesy, but he wouldn't answer my calls. Probably because my brother had someone beat him up. My divorce lawyer told me. I went to see Mr. Clyde, but when he found out I was hired by you, he refused to meet me. He didn't even ask why. The divorce papers are still in my hands. Me. What is Clyde playing at? If he didn't even fight back, what's he so angry about? I contacted his assistant directly. But he chose to cover his ears. You don't need to tell me. He doesn't want to hear anything related to you for now. Me. Was he beaten to a pulp? No, he was fine at first. But when he found out it wasn't Mr. Devon who arranged it, but you, he. What's the difference? Devon can have him beaten up, but I can't. Because it was you. Mr. Clyde seemed really upset. I've never seen him like this before. Even the old chairman scolded him, saying he's acting like an immature kid. The old chairman is Clyde's mother. I didn't finish listening and hung up. I've seen Clyde act immature too many times. But I didn't understand why he was so upset this time. Until one night, when I was asleep, Clyde suddenly called me. He was drunk, his voice low and his words slurred. Baby, how could you bear to have someone beat me up? At home, he always called me by my full name. There were no terms of endearment between us. It suited our business-like marriage. Leslie, where did you put the tie that matches this outfit? Leslie, our daughter is crying. Come and comfort her. Leslie, this coffee tastes worse than ever. It's not the one you made. You're slacking again. When I told my girlfriends, they didn't believe me. Clyde was no exception. He was just another typical man. But this same foolish man had become the pillar of support for another girl. He was the perfect uncle to Ada, but he gave me the worst version of himself. So, I made it clear to Clyde. Why wouldn't I bear to have you beaten up? Are you my son? Calling me Mom? Next time we meet, don't call me that. Call me Ms. Leslie. Because it's more distant, more fitting for us. I hung up, feeling much better. But the next day, someone else came to bother me, Ada. Ada came to confront me. Did you have someone beat up Clyde? What right do you have? How has he wronged you? He never even thought about divorcing you. By the end, Ada was on the verge of tears. My expression turned cold. Is not divorcing a good thing? You're too young to place so much importance on marriage. Somehow, this comment struck a nerve with Ada. She suddenly raised her voice. I'm not that young. After today, I'll be 23. Oh, and today's your birthday too, right? You're turning 29. Maybe it's not that I'm too young, but that you're too old? What a twisted coincidence. Ada and I share the same birthday. In 5 years of marriage, Clyde never remembered my birthday. He only thought of me after celebrating Ada's, giving me a belated gift as an afterthought. So, all the birthday presents he gave me are still piled up in my closet, unopened. I don't need these leftovers. Thinking about such trivial things is pointless. I didn't want to waste any more words on Ada. I simply replied, 29 isn't exactly young. Let's hope you don't live to see that age. After sending it, I smiled. Ada's such a fragile person. She'll probably cry, right? I made Clyde's little girl cry. Will he call to blame me once he sobers up? I blocked Clyde in advance. I underestimated Clyde. He called my parents' home phone. Luckily, my parents were out for their morning exercise, and my brother was at work. I was watching Nina eat breakfast, preparing to take her to school. Lately, the little one had been distracted, paying extra attention to me. Mommy, that blonde man called for you. Why did you ignore him? That's rude. Mommy has her reasons. You don't like him? Do you like the other man? The one who went to college with you? I'll go get your bag. I escaped the conversation helplessly. Just as I went upstairs, the landline phone downstairs rang. The upstairs and downstairs phones are connected, so when I picked up the receiver in my room, I heard a voice I knew all too well. You've been on this trip for so long. When are you coming back? It was Clyde, and he sounded annoyed. I knew it, after I scolded Ada, he was bound to come after me. I was about to preemptively strike, but Clyde surprised me. Today's your birthday. Don't forget to have some cake. My insults got stuck in my throat. What was Clyde playing at? We're getting a divorce, and now he's pretending to be the perfect husband? I was about to mock him when I heard another voice through the receiver. Nina had picked up the phone downstairs. Daddy, are you looking for Mommy? She's not home. But I was home. I was confused about why Nina would lie, but then she suddenly spoke in a serious tone. But Daddy, you're really disappointing. Mommy doesn't like cake. You don't even know that, but the blonde man does. I never knew my daughter was so sharp and observant. Clyde's voice was hoarse. Who's the blonde man? Nina huffed, her tone full of warning. One of the new daddies I picked out. Anyway, don't ruin things. I rushed downstairs and took the phone from Nina. Well said, but that's enough. Clyde's voice came through, almost growling, Leslie, I know you're there. Don't you dare hang up. I knew he must be furious right now. But what did that have to do with me? I hung up. Then, I gave Nina a talking to. Since when did I ask you to pick out men for me? I just wanted to help Mommy. I thought to myself, thanks. On the way to dropping Nina off at school, my phone kept buzzing. I thought it was spam messages. But when I checked, the sender was Clyde. I was stunned. He actually texted me. He used to always call me, even when I asked him to text. He refused, saying it was a waste of time. But with Ada, he'd stop mid-meeting to reply to her texts. So, I didn't even read it. I just deleted it. I didn't need it before, and I certainly don't need it now. After dropping Nina off at kindergarten, Clyde finally called. I answered. Why didn't you read my message? Waste of time. He was speechless. Are you still mad at me? No. I'm coming back tomorrow. I'll transfer all my shares to your name. Your lawyer keeps contacting me. Why? If you're worried I'll give my assets to Ada, don't be. Come back, and I'll give everything to you. How generous. But I know Clyde too well. He grew up surrounded by money. The one thing he doesn't care about is money. Clyde, you've misunderstood. My lawyer isn't contacting you for money. It's because I want a divorce. As soon as the words left my mouth, Clyde's breathing stopped. The air seemed to freeze. I thought. He'd be happy, right? If he loves Ada, he can finally be with her. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter. He'll be free. From now on, he can spoil whoever he wants. I won't care. I waited for his agreement. But after a long silence, Clyde's gloomy, low voice came through. Have you really fallen for someone else? Leslie, you're cheating. Divorce? Don't even think about it. He hung up. Clyde met with my lawyer and tore up the divorce papers. I don't know what he did, but my lawyer quit on me. No lawyer in the country would take my case. The next time I saw Clyde, he had come to Country A. On the day I got off work at the TV station, my senior colleague asked me out to dinner. He had helped me resolve a work crisis last time, so it was my treat. I had already booked a restaurant. But I didn't expect. As we walked out of the TV station, chatting and laughing, Clyde was standing by the street. He was wearing a black trench coat, his handsome face and tall figure drawing the attention of many local girls. That face had once attracted me too. But now, I hated it. I pretended not to see him. Senior, let's go eat. Before I could finish, Clyde blocked our path. Leslie, I won't say it twice. Come back with me. Who are you to order me around? My senior colleague stepped in front of me, shielding me. She doesn't want to talk to you. He was too naive. He thought Clyde was some reasonable, kind-hearted guy. But I saw Clyde's clenched fists, veins bulging. I sighed and stepped in front of my senior, shielding him, and looked up at Clyde. If you dare hit him, I won't mind having someone beat you up again. Clyde's face turned completely dark. Fine. Leslie, you're treating me like this for someone else. He stared at me, his eyes red. He always believed that what was his would always be his. Even if he didn't like it, no one else could take it away. But Clyde, the world doesn't revolve around you. Clyde didn't come looking for me again. At the same time, the two suitors at the TV station stopped asking me out to dinner. It wasn't that I wasn't used to it, I was worried Clyde had threatened them. So, I subtly asked for the reason. And the answer was, Leslie, I'm sorry. Actually, we were asked by your brother to boost your confidence. Your brother was worried you'd get depressed over love. Since you wouldn't actually fall for us, we just flirted a bit to cheer you up. Oh, and by the way, the third guy is already on his way. 5 minutes later. I ran into the third suitor in the elevator. He was a famous architect, steward, and a guest on our TV station's interview show. Handsome and talented. But not very tactful. He greeted me as soon as he saw me. Ms. Leslie, nice to meet you. I was just an intern. How did he know me? He must be the third suitor my brother had enlisted. Nice to meet you too, but let's stop here, okay? What? You're our interview guest. I don't want any rumors. It'll affect my professional image. What? Keep pretending. When the elevator reached the 8th floor, he glanced at me before stepping out. Ms. Leslie, your name tag is crooked. Me? I quickly looked down and saw my name on the tag. Me. So, he might not have been sent by my brother. What had I just said? I frantically pressed the elevator buttons, wishing I could disappear. But then Stewart suddenly turned back, his bright eyes looking at me. Oh, and Ms. Leslie, don't worry. My professional image is important too. Me. I never wanted to see Stewart again. I just wanted to yell at Devon. During my break, I couldn't wait to pull out my phone. Who told you to take it upon yourself to find men to chase me? What kind of love game are you playing? Do you know how embarrassed I was just now? Devon was nonchalant. You're my sister. Can't I let you play any game you want? I don't want to play. Alright, I won't find anyone else. Don't be mad, okay? Devon tried to calm me down, then changed the subject. Your almost ex-husband just visited me at the company. He brought a huge deal, just to ask me to put in a good word for him. He doesn't want a divorce. Begging? Clyde actually begged Devon. To be honest, the guy's improved. He's willing to give up such a big deal. He seems really serious about you. Maybe you should. Devon was starting to waver. Clyde had good tactics. If he couldn't win me over, he'd win over the people around me. Are you sure you want to speak up for him? He hit me. Slapped me. As soon as I said that, my brother, who had been trying to mediate, exploded. Clyde hit you? Wait, I'm going to kill him. Then should I still remarry him? What about your business deal? What do you take me for? Forget the deal. I'll beat him to a pulp. Finally, Devon calmed down a bit. This time, I spoke out of turn. I'm sorry. Whatever you decide to do, I'll support you. You'll definitely meet a man 100 times better than Clyde. That's more like it. Don't worry, my Prince Charming is already riding the Milky Way to meet me. As soon as I finished this dreamy statement, I turned around and saw Stuart standing across from me. Hi, what a coincidence. I was waiting for the elevator and just happened to not be wearing headphones. Me. So, you heard everything? From the love game to the Prince Charming. Stuart and I got into the elevator together. It was just the two of us in the quiet space. He broke the silence softly. I'm 30 and haven't been in a relationship. Why was he telling me this? What did it have to do with me? What was he trying to do? Was he some kind of creep? I moved away from him. He continued, when I was a kid, I looked like a girl, and a boy hit on me. I beat him up because of it. Now, he keeps asking me to beat him up again. I looked at him, confused, as he let out a breath. That's all my secrets. I heard your secrets, so as an exchange, I'm telling you mine. That way, you won't have to worry. He said it so seriously. All right then. Stuart and I had known each other for less than a day, and we were already exchanging secrets. When the elevator reached the first floor, he was about to leave. But then he seemed to remember something and turned back. Do you like the Milky Way? Huh? The Prince Charming riding the Milky Way. Stop. He suddenly smiled, like a soft spring breeze. There's a galaxy exhibition nearby. I designed the Milky Way there. Want to check it out? Stuart had this pure, approachable vibe. Friendly, cheerful. Sure. As soon as I agreed, I looked up and saw Clyde, his face bruised, staring coldly at us. I thought he was going to come over and start a fight. But he didn't. He walked up to me casually. The men around you sure aren't repetitive. Still in the selection phase, huh? I looked away, not wanting to engage. But then I heard his pleading voice. Leslie, can you reconsider me? No. I started to leave with Stuart. Weren't we going to see the Milky Way? I didn't want to deal with this eyesore. But Clyde blocked my path. Leslie, I know you're jealous of Ada, but you're wrong. I don't have any romantic feelings for her. His figure blocked the light, casting a shadow over my mood. Clyde, enough. Saying this only makes me more determined to divorce you. After all, even if he didn't have romantic feelings for Ada, his favoritism toward her was boundless. I was more of a joke than ever. I know you haven't crossed any lines with Ada, but does that mean I have to tolerate it? Think about it. How many important moments have you missed because of Ada? Our wedding, Nina's birth, the times I needed you most, you were never there. I caught a glimpse of Stuart's shocked expression. Did he think I was pitiful? But I didn't want to be pitied. I steadied my gaze, looking at Clyde with complete calm. Let's get a divorce. Let's free each other. I pleaded with Clyde. But he pleaded with me too. Leslie, I'll change. Please don't stop loving me. Clyde was actually begging me to stay. Why? He clearly doesn't love me. If he did, he wouldn't have abandoned me time and time again. Maybe he just needs me in his daily life. Without me, he can't get his coffee just right. Ada depends on him, and in some ways, he depends on me. I should have realized this sooner, but I kept holding on to hope. Clyde, I don't want to say this again. Let's get a divorce. I turned away, no longer looking at him. I'll print out a new divorce agreement for you. Clyde still wouldn't let go. He gripped my wrist so tightly it hurt. You're hurting her. I heard Stuart's calm reminder. Clyde didn't even acknowledge him. Get lost. If I leave, who's going to educate Mr. Clyde on the law? Mr. Clyde should know that in a marriage, if one party wants a divorce, the marriage can be dissolved. Compared to Clyde's barely contained rage, Stuart was calm and composed. But the more he acted like this, the more he was testing Clyde's patience. Clyde finally let go of my wrist. Seeing the red marks, he reached out to touch them, but I pulled away. Is he your new boyfriend? He flexed his wrist. I knew what he was about to do. Stewart was just trying to help. I didn't want an innocent person to suffer because of me. So, I stepped in front of Stewart. Bang! A passerby suddenly bumped into me. The impact was so strong I lost my balance. Careful! Stewart reached out and caught me by the waist. We were close. As I turned my head, my lips brushed against his. An unfamiliar sensation. Warm. Soft. Oh. The crowd around us erupted in cheers. I wasn't sure if they were praising Stewart for his quick reflexes or just enjoying the spectacle of a kiss. Stewart and I were surrounded by more and more people. Clyde was pushed far away, and I could only see him trembling with anger. Finally, I grabbed Stewart's hand, and we ran away from the crowd. We went to see the Milky Way. I'm sorry, that was an accident, I apologized sincerely. But Stewart didn't seem upset that I'd accidentally taken his first kiss. It's just a physical thing. No big deal. I couldn't help but laugh. At the Galaxy exhibition, Stewart proudly introduced his work to me. When I was a kid, my grandma told me the story of Orion and Artemis. Myths are so beautiful and romantic, he said wistfully. But sorry. I'm allergic to romance right now. Have you heard the full story? Orion stole Artemis' bow, and Artemis lost her freedom, forced to stay on Earth. No one knows if Artemis really wanted that. You all focus on the romance, but no one cares about Artemis suffering. Oh. I never thought about it from that angle. He was visibly embarrassed, his face turning red again. It's fine. It's just a myth. Everyone interprets it differently. That's normal. I felt like Stewart was too easy to tease, and I didn't want to bully him. But he took it seriously. No, I was wrong. It's not that serious. Thinking about it, being a goddess is probably easier than being a wife. He pondered this seriously, then looked at me apologetically. If you hadn't said that, as a man, I probably wouldn't have thought of it that way. I shook my head. There was no need to apologize. After leaving the exhibition, I had to go pick up Nina. Stewart suddenly called out to me. Ms. Leslie. I hope you become a free Artemis. And congratulations in advance on your divorce. I was stunned. Because of the divorce, many people felt sorry for me, cared for me. But only Stewart wished me happiness in my divorce. I thought Stewart and I wouldn't cross paths again. But then the TV station had another celebrity interview. This time, it was for top figures from various industries. The task fell to me, and I made countless calls. But I was new to Country A and didn't have many connections. I had no choice but to ask Stewart again. He was handsome, serious, and polite, exactly the type girls liked. Luckily, he agreed. When I told my boss, they were surprised. Isn't he super busy lately? But he agreed so easily. Oh no. Did he just not know how to say no to me? I thought that after the recording, I'd have to thank him properly. So, when my boss told me to find a backup, I refused. It felt disrespectful to Stewart. But on the day of the recording, he didn't show up. With only 15 minutes left, his phone was unreachable. My boss was furious. You didn't even find a backup? I thought you were so confident, but look what happened. Stewart's busy with his architectural designs. Did you really think he'd come just because you asked? I was scolded mercilessly, but I didn't feel too disappointed. This wasn't the first time I'd been stood up. Clyde had stood me up for 5 years. Stewart wasn't even my boyfriend. He didn't owe me anything. He was so busy, he probably forgot. Just as I was thinking this, a colleague suddenly informed me, Stewart's here. But he arrived on crutches. Apparently, he'd been hit by a bus while riding his bike and broke his leg. Why didn't you drive? I was in a car accident 3 years ago. I'm scared of driving. Stewart smiled, still cheerful. It's fine. I'll just sit during the interview. It won't affect anything. I felt even worse. You could have just called. We would have understood. But I didn't want to let you down. You invited me to be on TV. That's an honor. How could I not show up? Stewart's face turned red again. You're lying. You heard me arguing with my ex-husband, and you know he always stood me up. So, you wanted to make it up to me? He froze. How did you know what I was thinking? Because you're an angel. I gradually became interested in the angel. I quietly followed his social media accounts. His posts were as comforting as he was. He loved sharing things about nature. Clouds. Birds. Pugs, stray cats. I searched his name online, and aside from his numerous achievements, there was a cute little news story. On a rainy day some years ago, he was spotted crouching by the roadside, holding an umbrella over a stubborn cat that refused to move. This scene was captured by a reporter and posted online, warming the hearts of many. Maybe he really was an angel. For a moment, I was lost in thought. My phone fell to the ground. As I reached to pick it up, a large hand swept past me. I looked up to see Clyde holding my phone. He looked at me, pretending to be gentle. What are you looking at? Smiling so happily, is it a photo of us? We didn't have any photos together. The only wedding photo we had was lost due to Ada's carelessness. Both the negatives and the originals were gone. I couldn't be bothered to argue. Give me my phone. Before I could finish, Clyde's expression changed completely. You're looking at him? I snatched my phone back. What's it to you? Steward's personal account had already logged out. On the screen, I saw a photo Clyde had posted. Our wedding photo from 5 years ago. I didn't open it. I just deleted it. Pathetic. Clyde lost it, grabbing my arms. What's not pathetic? He's not pathetic? Leslie, tell me, you're only looking at him to make me jealous. I broke free from his grip. No. I might be ready to start a normal relationship. Even if it wasn't with Stewart, it would be with someone else. In any case, I wouldn't let Clyde ruin my life forever. Is that so? But we have a daughter. Leslie, you can marry someone else, but Nina's custody has to go to me. My heart sank as I stared into Clyde's determined eyes. No, Nina will only choose me. What if I insist? Your family's business has moved abroad, but you still rely on domestic suppliers. You wouldn't want your family's company to collapse, would you? Clyde thought he had me cornered. But he forgot. He had a weakness too. I contacted Ada and told her everything about how Clyde was pressuring me. This was a headache for me. For Ada, it was a nightmare. No way. Uncle wouldn't care about you that much. You're lying. Enough talk. Can you get him to go back or not? As long as Clyde returned to the country, both Ada and I would feel at ease. That night, news came that Ada had attempted suicide. She was even admitted to the ICU. I bet Clyde would go back. After all, it was Ada. Compared to her, Nina and I were nothing. But the next day, when I went to pick up Nina from school, Clyde was standing at the gate, chatting happily with Nina's teacher. Surprised to see me? Disgusted. I said it outright. His smile instantly faded. Nina was there, so I didn't make a scene. I'm taking Nina home. Back to the country? Home is where Nina belongs. Clyde spoke softly, trying to sway me. Then, he picked up Nina. Sweetheart, do you want to go home with Daddy? I prepared lots of toys for you. When you're on holiday, we'll go see the desert together. Didn't you want to see camels? Daddy promises, from now on, I'll spend more time with you. He gave me a deep look. I remained unmoved. As for Nina, she probably wasn't a match for Clyde. I reached out to take Nina back. But Nina struggled to get down. I don't want to see camels anymore. Wherever Mommy is, that's Nina's home. What about Daddy? Our house has plenty of rooms. You can stay, but only if Mommy agrees. Clyde was speechless for the first time. He let Nina slide out of his arms and returned to me. It felt like I'd won a battle. See? Clyde, you can't force this. Clyde's eyes dimmed. Nina and I went home. Mommy, there's a man at the door. Is he your friend? I looked over and saw it was Stewart. Is he your boyfriend? Nina asked excitedly. I shushed her and sent her inside. So, I didn't get the chance to invite Stewart in for tea. Sorry, kids can be noisy. No, she's your daughter. She looks just like you. She's adorable. Stewart was gentle, but reserved. The atmosphere between us was awkward. I broke the silence. Did you need something? Not really. I just wanted to say I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. I'll be gone for a month. A month? That's a long time. Why are you telling me this? I pursed my lips, my heart racing a little. So? He hesitated, then finally spoke. When I come back, can I confess to you? What? Actually, I have a secret. That day at your TV station, I fell in love at first sight with a girl named Leslie. I agreed to Stewart's request. I never saw Clyde again. The month-long wait felt a bit too long. Stewart and I kept in touch every day. My heart raced, as if I were experiencing first love. First love? I never had a first love. What I thought was my first love happened in high school. There was a fire at school, and I sprained my ankle, nearly dying in the flames. It was Clyde who carried me out of the fire. Back then, as I clung to Clyde's back, I was filled with affection for him. But time flies. The boy who saved me from the fire, I couldn't find a trace of him in Clyde anymore. Over the years, Clyde tried every way possible to stop me from divorcing him. He went to my brother and got beaten up. He went to my parents, but wasn't even allowed through the door. He even tried to use my job to create opportunities to see me. I wondered why he was so persistent. Even when Ada made such a scene, he didn't go back. His answer was laughable. I know that if I go back, I'll never win you back. He finally realized. I was no longer the wife waiting for him to come home. But even if you stay here forever, I won't care about you. Are you sure? You used to love me so much. That was in the past. In the coffee shop, I spoke calmly. Clyde, what kind of person do you think I am? Calm, gentle, understanding. Clyde's mind was quick. But he was wrong. I had changed long ago. Would you believe that 5 years ago, the moment I saw Ada, I wanted to pull her hair and slap her because I felt she had stolen my husband? Back then, I was a scorned woman whose husband had been taken away. I looked up, and Clyde's eyes fell into darkness. I smiled. Do you think I'm pitiful too? So. Let me go. I don't want to love you anymore. I just want to love myself. Clyde never came to see me again. But I didn't receive the divorce papers either. We were at a stalemate. I took Nina to the amusement park, and he stood far away, watching. When Nina and I went for walks, he followed behind. Just last night. He called me and explained about Ada. It wasn't really an explanation, though. Before I was 10, I was left in an orphanage. My biological father was an irresponsible man. He broke my mother's heart. If she hadn't had other children, she wouldn't have raised me. The first time I saw Ada, she called me Daddy. It was ridiculous. I was only 20. How could I be her father? But when she called me that, I thought of my own father. I decided to adopt Ada and take full responsibility for her, to show my parents. Clyde adopted Ada out of a desire for revenge. But who was he really punishing? I remained unmoved. Clyde, the pain from your family isn't an excuse to hurt others. Your parents wronged you, but Nina and I didn't. I hung up. After that, Clyde never contacted me again. He followed Nina and me around, behaving like a vagrant. Mommy, there's a bunny over there. Nina suddenly broke free from my hand in excitement. I didn't have time to grab her. Beep beep. A car came out of nowhere, speeding toward us. Nina. I rushed forward, but a dark figure got there before me. Clyde grabbed Nina and took the impact. He fell unconscious. Clyde's mother arrived. She looked at her unconscious son with no expression. But she made one demand. Take the child and accompany Clyde back to the country. If I refused, she would cut off the supply of raw materials to my family's company. I laughed. This mother and son were really alike. I wasn't grateful to Clyde. Nina was his daughter, he should have saved her. Besides, if he hadn't, I would have. But I didn't want to burden my family. Fine, I agree. I nodded. she sneered. Useless boy. If he had done this earlier, he wouldn't have had to hide it from me and give you 3 years' worth of supplies. Hearing this, my heart sank. Clyde, what were you thinking? I didn't tell my family about my mother-in-law's threats. I insisted on returning to the country. But my parents probably guessed. They and my brother disagreed. Losing their supply chain won't bankrupt us. But I was adamant. Even if it didn't bankrupt us, it would still be a heavy blow. I had always pursued what I loved without contributing to the family. This time, let me make some sacrifices. In the end, we reached an agreement. I would take Nina and accompany Clyde back to the country. For 1 year. After a year, Clyde would have to sign the divorce papers and promise me custody of Nina. But at the airport, I felt a pang of reluctance. Stewart was coming back tomorrow. Would he be sad if he couldn't find me? I thought about leaving something for him. But then I thought, forget it. If it wasn't meant to be, why drag him into it? 3 months after returning to the country, Clyde woke up. But he had amnesia. He didn't remember anyone, except he called me baby. Call me Leslie. No, you're my wife. After he recovered, it was like he was a different person. Whenever I was around, he was there, attentive and caring. The once feared CEO hadn't changed wives, but had become a model of a devoted husband. Ada came to see him several times, but was turned away. Because Clyde didn't remember her. She didn't believe it. She thought Clyde was faking it to test her, so in a fit of anger, she married one of Clyde's playboy friends, becoming the wife of a notorious womanizer. But Clyde remained indifferent, even sending her a lavish wedding gift. I became more convinced that Clyde's heart was cold. He was definitely faking it. How could Clyde have amnesia? And if he did, why would he only remember Nina and me? He didn't even remember Nina's birthday. I watched his performance coldly, playing the role of a good father and husband. Every night after putting Nina to sleep, he would come to my room. And I would go to the study. But tonight, he stopped me. Baby, let me stay with you, okay? I'm not feeling well. You still won't forgive me? Clyde can't keep up the act anymore? But the next second, he picked me up and carried me to the bed, pressing his body against mine. Clyde. I panicked, instinctively struggling. He wasn't fazed, his low voice close to my ear. Stop fighting me. Let's live peacefully, okay? Let me go first. No. Get off me. Whenever we fought before, didn't we always make up after sleeping together? His fingers began unbuttoning my shirt. He stopped just before the final step. Because, on the verge of breaking down, I called out a name. Stewart. It was the first time since returning that I had thought of him. Clyde propped himself up, looking at me expressionlessly. You still remember him? Seems I haven't been good enough to you. He said this quietly, then didn't force me anymore. After that, he treated me even better. He wanted me to smile at him. But aside from Nina, I couldn't bring myself to smile anymore. Later, I heard by chance that Ada, whom I once despised, was now living a miserable life. Her husband had countless women, and she was constantly criticized by her mother-in-law. She wanted Clyde to stand up for her, but couldn't even get through the door. Later, she was kicked out of the house by her husband for flirting with a younger man at a bar. Clyde didn't intervene. He just said, she has hands and feet. She can take care of herself. So, Clyde had always known she could take care of herself. I became even more unhappy. Ada had her freedom, but I didn't. The year passed quickly. But Clyde and his family seemed to have forgotten our agreement. They refused to let Nina and me leave. One day, lost in thought, I was peeling an apple. When Clyde came home, he saw me with blood all over my hands. He looked horrified. Leslie, who said you could hurt yourself? I had hurt myself, but it wasn't a real attempt at suicide. Often, to get something, you have to pay a price. So, I got the divorce papers. Leslie, I'll let you go. Take Nina with you. Clyde stood with his back to me, his voice hoarse. He seemed to be crying. But I didn't care. I was happy. I was finally free. Leslie, happy divorce. Epilogue. Clyde stood by the window, watching Leslie and their daughter leave. The mother and daughter's joyful figures were so alike. Was leaving him really that blissful? Yes, he had been a jerk in the past. But he thought he had changed. His Leslie was the girl he had carried out of the fire. The girl who had once adored him. As she grew up, she became gentle and graceful. She understood life, knew how to live it. Everything in the house was arranged by her. Even the faint scent of the incense she made herself. This was Clyde's unique home. He had grown up in an orphanage, and when he returned home, he found his parents were scum. The only person who gave him a home was Leslie. But now she was gone, never to return. Thinking of this, Clyde felt a surge of emotion and coughed up blood. Leslie traveled to many countries with her daughter. Eventually, they returned to Country A. One evening, while walking her dog, she wandered into a university. Actually, it was intentional. She had been sneaking around the university every day, wearing a hat and mask, acting suspicious. She wanted to see someone, but was afraid to. Today, she finally ran into him. In front of the library. A man stood at the entrance, holding a book, poised and dignified. A red-haired student was scratching his head, asking for leave. "Professor, my friend just went through a breakup and needs me." "So, today's class." "Breakup?" The young professor's eyes dimmed at the word breakup. How did it happen? Was it because the girl he liked went back to her ex? "Steward. You always make me want to cry and laugh at the same time." My heart ached fiercely. Without hesitation, I walked over and tapped his shoulder. "Hi, let's reintroduce ourselves. I'm now a free Artemis." The moment he turned around, I saw the Milky Way in his eyes. Shining brightly. "Steward, this time, I'll chase you." The end.